Good afternoon.
Welcome, everybody.
It's great to be here with you all. It's day 3. Everybody's a little tired. Maybe they went out last night. And the good news is we might get snowed in. So we're like totally going to be here. We have enough content to fill a couple hours if we need to. I'm Derek Snyder. I look after product marketing for all of our Microsoft 365 apps.
And I'm Howard Crow. I am the GPM of Planner, Project, Visio, and Whiteboard.
So we want to spend a lot of time today really showing you the product. So don't worry too much. The slides will be kept to a minimal, and we're going to actually spend a lot of time actually demoing some of the new capabilities that are coming, especially all the new project management agent capabilities coming to Planner. So stay tuned for that. I think it'll be an exciting part. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about, over the last year, where we've come from and where we're going to. I think the first thing we want to say is we are building this ship together. It is really important that you continue to give us feedback. In fact, over the last year, we've continued to implement feedback across a variety of experiences inside of Copilot. So for instance, feedback around content creation led to us actually building designer-based AI generation inside of BizChat, as an example. In Outlook, you wanted to actually not just prompt once, but to prompt again, like make tweaks to emails that you can pose with Copilot. Those are the kind of things that we implemented because we heard it from you. We also spend a bunch of time collecting feedback around insights and how we can actually have Copilot move from a productivity booster to one where you're actually getting a data analyst that can assist you. And so the ability, for instance, in Excel to not just crunch on numbers, but to crunch on text. Like maybe you had a survey and you have a bunch of open comments and you want to understand the themes from them. Great idea. We added it to Copilot in Excel. And then we also spent a bunch of time around streamlining workflow. And that's really where our agentic workflows and all the agents that we announced, as well as the ability to create third-party agents that we announced at the show this week, have come in. So all that to say, thank you very much. Please keep the feedback coming. I'm very serious when I say the product teams, and I'm sure Howard can attest to this as well, are like totally ears open to all of this, and we really do listen. Now, when we talk about AI transformation, I think a year in, we've started to realize, yes, saving minutes is important. It's good that you're actually giving your employees, taking the drudgery out of their work and restoring some of the joy that comes without having to do routine or tedious tasks. However, what we hear is it's not about saving minutes, it's about saving dollars and actually growing revenue, and that's what's really important. So when we think about AI transformation, it's really the mix of managing your cost and growing your revenue. And the way in which we actually think about delivering against that is really in 2 key areas. And these are going to be kind of the foundation of what we're going to talk about today. Number one, what do we continue to do for individuals and team productivity? How do we get everybody in the workforce more efficient? How do we make sure we do continue to deliver time savings? Because that's not insignificant. And then how do we make sure that people actually get skills that they didn't have before? I don't have design skills. In the past, I used to have to hire people to make PowerPoints look beautiful, as an example. How can we actually give those types of skills to people so that they can increase their creativity, even as a knowledge worker? And then on the other side, how do we actually drive more business value? And this really is captured in revenue growth and the ability to action more opportunities. How do I increase my sales? How do I increase my revenue? Those types of things. And that's really where the agent factor comes in. The ability to use agents really as a business process accelerant. How can I have an agent take over the closing of my books every quarter, as an example? So we're starting to see really the mixture of these 2 things coming together as the way in which we deliver against that AI opportunity. Okay, so today we're going to talk mostly at the beginning about individual and team productivity. It's very interesting when you look at the data, and we spent some time, obviously, collecting a lot of information. You would think it's really just about tedious, repetitive tasks. But in fact, employees also want to be creative, and they want to be better at planning their day, and they want to be better at actually finding those golden insights inside of all their data. And so employees actually are looking for a multitude of use cases from AI. And check this out. It's very interesting. What do leaders want? Actually, not to reduce headcount. It's the least they want. It may be surprising to you all. They actually want to increase their employee productivity. In fact, that's twice as much when you actually measure what they want in terms of outcomes and results from AI. Okay, how is Copilot going to improve your workflow? I said we were going to get into demos, so we'll do that now. The first thing I'll say is that people are really struggling with digital debt. We end up doing this survey every year. We call it the Work Trend Index. I'd encourage you to check it out. You can just search for it online. And every year, we use a combination of all the telemetry we collect from our products, so hundreds of millions of people using the Office apps every day as an example. And then we mix that with a bunch of data that we get from quantitative and qualitative surveys, as well as all of our LinkedIn data. In other words, what are the jobs of the future? Where do we actually see trends changing in terms of the types of jobs that are important for today's modern workforce? And all that comes together into these reports that we do every year. This past year, it was very interesting. This concept of digital debt has really come out. And I think it's because since the pandemic, we all are expected to do many, many things asynchronously. And because of tools that we now have, like the ability to record and transcribe meetings, you can literally be in 4 places at once. You can follow a meeting rather than attend them all. And so in that world, we just have a lot more digital debt that we have to deal with. 68% of people actually struggle with the volume of work they have. 85% of emails are read in 15 seconds or less. And about 60% of your time these days is just managing work, not doing work. Emails, meetings, just like the stuff that doesn't actually get you to an outcome, it's an ingredient. And so we think there's a real opportunity. And then looking at specifically meeting management, just to double click on that, people are spending 4 hours per week just preparing information for meetings, just getting things ready, synthesizing information. And meetings are getting more complicated. I live in New York, my colleagues are in Seattle. It's really difficult when you're working across time zones to get everybody together, especially as we're all, frankly, in more meetings than ever before. So, what are we doing in some of those areas? Let's go ahead and switch to the demo. Thank you, Howard. I love your Britney Spears mic, by the way.
Thank you.
I think we look good. Outlook. What are we doing in Outlook? Everybody spends too much time in Outlook. We know this. One of the things that we've actually built is a new capability called Prioritize My Inbox. Turns out, people are actually very, very bad at writing emails. Why? The subject line rarely has to do with the subject of the email, especially after the thread starts to spin out of control. And then Outlook in the past has given you that nice little first line of the email. The first line of the email rarely tells you what the thread is about, right? And those were the signals you had up until now. But with Prioritize My Inbox, I can now have Copilot process all of my mails and tell me why they're important. So check out this little arrow here. It's actually telling me not only that this email is important, it's telling me why. And it's replaced the subject line in the first line of the email with a brief little summary of why this thread is important for me. Now, how do we understand this? We actually look at a bunch of different signals. We first and foremost look at the organizational chart, which is in the Microsoft Graph. Is this person my manager? Is this person on my team? Do I frequently communicate with this person? Number 2, is the topic important? Turns out any email about Ignite gets prioritized in my inbox. Why is that? Because I go to a lot of meetings about Ignite. People tend to keep talking to me about Ignite for like an entire year before Ignite. And so all of that stuff is put into the model. And we're able to then personalize your email experience based on that. So you can see here when I click into this mail thread, it tells me in a little summary, this is updates on the launch plan for the new design service. Great, this email was actually worth clicking into. So I guarantee you, once you start using Prioritize My Inbox, you will be opening less mail, and it will be very, very good. Now, as I think if you went to the general session, you saw, you can also teach Copilot. You can go ahead and tweak as well, make it very easy to tell Copilot this is important, this person's important, this topic's important, or conversely, this is not important. In the past, you'd have to use complicated Outlook rules and all these other things, and usually wouldn't be perfect. I have found that this is very, very accurate and compelling. Okay, so that's just an example of Prioritize Your Inbox, being able to give you those summaries. Now let's go ahead and actually scroll down a little bit and take a look at some of the emails that are coming through. You can see here that we've got actually a complicated set of messages actually going on around the launch of this product. I'm going to go ahead and look at some of my mails here. I think I'm going to actually open up this thread here. Lots of things going on. At one point in the email thread, you decide, okay, we just need to get into a meeting together. I'm going to give feedback to Copilot later. Okay, we can schedule with Copilot. When you click Schedule with Copilot, it actually creates a brand new meeting invite. It populates it with all the attendees. It attaches all the artifacts and documents you already have. It also creates a synthesis of the email thread so far, which it then turns into an agenda. And then it makes it very easy to just get up to speed on what this is about. Another thing people are terrible at is actually putting agendas for meetings. So this is really, really good to be able to have that done automatically. And finally, Copilot can also start to do some of the things that you would expect an assistant to do in the context of your calendar. So if I want to actually get some time with Howard, I'm going to just type into Copilot here, schedule a one-on-one with Howard. Now, what's interesting here is that there's 300,000 people in the Microsoft contact directory. But I just said Howard because it actually understands the relationships that I have. And it knows that Howard is this Howard. And it's actually going to offer me a time when we're both available. When I click View, it actually takes me directly into that open slot on my calendar. So it gives me the context of all the other things I got going on, and I can go ahead and send that off, and it'll go ahead and do that. So you can use this for scheduling one-on-ones. You can use this for scheduling focus time. So I'd encourage you to play with some of the things that I've showed you today. I think they really will be productivity enhancing. OK, let's flip back to the deck. Howard, over to you.
Great. So you might have noticed that we're actually working on a project right now, and Derek has actually asked me to help out with that, and that's a lot of work. I think that we all work on projects these days. Everybody now works on projects, given the level of collaboration that we have, both local and global as well. And I think the other thing that's happening is most people work on multiple projects. And some of those you're just doing tasks, and some of them you're actually the driver and you own that and you need to get it started. And it turns out that most projects actually take over 15 hours just to get started. And so they've been doing a lot of studies about how when you bring AI into project management, that changes the nature of the game. And so what we're seeing is a 20% cost savings just in the project management portion of the project when people are using AI in that process. But the really big lever is when people use AI to actually execute on the tasks. And this reduces the overall time in the project by 30%, which means you can get done faster with fewer resources, and everything starts accelerating for you as an organization. And so to help with this, we introduced on Tuesday, and by we, I mean my friend Satya, the project manager agent. And the great thing about this is it's going to help everybody manage projects better than they ever have and get more stuff done. And so I'm going to dive into a demo right now and show you guys the project manager agent. So here we are. I'm in Planner. I have a set of plans. What I can do now is I can go in and create a new plan. And for those of you who have seen Planner before, you'll notice that there's a new category of templates here called Project Manager templates. And all of these templates have the Project Manager agent wired into them automatically. And so I can go in here and I can use one of the existing templates, or I can create one from scratch. Work, play strategy. Then the most important thing is I am actually going to add a group to this. And so what this does is it actually connects the plan to the group and the SharePoint site associated with that group, so that it uses all the content in there as grounding. And so let's take a look and see what Planner looks like now. There's some new views and some new pages inside here, as well as the agent itself. And so what you see here is the Project Manager page, which is a very easy way for somebody to get started. Maybe somebody who doesn't really know a lot about managing a project. They can come in here and type in a goal for that. For the plan. Everything starts with goals. They can actually also add files. So if you've done a brainstorm, for example, here on some things that you want to do, you can add that in, and it will use that as grounding for the plan that it then creates and for all the tasks that it then makes afterwards. And so this is effectively added to the team content for you. I can now hit the Generate Tasks button, and this is where a lot of the magic happens. The Project Manager agent actually has multiple agents that work for it. It's kind of like a boss agent, so to speak. And some of those agents do things like break down tasks. It looks at the grounding content in SharePoint. It looks at the goal that we gave it. And so there's a goal agent and a SharePoint agent, and the project manager agent is managing all these. And so here we can see it's actually built out a plan for me. Now, what would I do next? The next thing to do is obviously say, well, heck, why don't we assign a couple of these to the project manager agent itself? And so at this point, it actually enlists, like any good project manager, delegates, right? Because that's what project managers do. It delegates to some of the other agents to go and execute on some of those tasks. And so I can go to the board view here. And again, for those of you who use Planner, you'll notice there's a new view here, which is kind of the status of the agent and the work that it's doing. Now, I don't have to just use those tasks that it made. I can always add another one. Like I'm going to assign a task to Derek here. Write strategy doc. I should probably spell strategy right? Okay. let's see, we're going to assign that to Derek. Derek, we're counting on you. So what you're seeing now is the agent's actually starting to finish tasks already while I've been doing that. Derek's got his tasks assigned to him down here. He'll go work on that, we hope.
Right away.
Okay, great. He'll go work on that. And so what you can see here is the agents and the people are kind of working together. Pretty cool. So let's go in here and take a look at some of the content. And so this is where a lot of the agents are going out and looking at the web, looking at the grounding content in SharePoint, and actually coming up and going through each of the steps in the plan and creating content there. This is actually all stored in a loop file. So you can come in here and you can collaborate as a team. And so pretty cool. We've got Loop now embedded in every task inside Planner. That's pretty cool. So a really nice place to come and collaborate. You know, you can sort of @mention each other and comment and do all those kinds of things. Now, one of the things I might do is say, okay, let's take this here and just put a comment in here that says, format this in a table. Pretty cool. Maybe I'll scroll down and I'll be like, oh, from the outcome, I'd really like you to expand upon this section. And the whole team can do this. This is actually a very group activity that you can do. And then what I'll do is I'll hit regenerate. And so now it gets assigned back to the project manager. And so again, the agents are working. And while the agents are working and doing kind of the task that maybe I don't want to do, I'm going to go do something fun, which I like to do, which is brainstorm. And so we now have a whiteboard inside Planner. So you can come in here and you could add a couple of Post-it notes. Let's see, we're doing interior design stuff, so I want to know what's going to go on with the chairs. I'm not a very good architect. Desks. And then my personal architect hero, Art Vandelay, says that lighting, some people got that one, is always important, so I'm going to do a lighting Post-it note. So we've done some brainstorming as a team. I can select those and just hit Create Tasks. So I go back to the board. All of those brainstorming items are now added to the plan. And so I can start building out the plan as I go, as I brainstorm, as I work with Copilot, all these different ways that I can sort of work with the agents that are on the system. And I think this is the one that we asked it to, oh, look at that. I got a table. So it was off in the background. It was taking all the comments. It can be comments from the whole team, and it's updating all the content inside the loop file for me, formatted as a table, extended the section, and did all that great stuff. And so, of course, the best part is, oh, the wonderful ding that I got my task done.
The soft ding.
So I'm getting more stuff done as we go. So there you go. So that's the project manager agent in a nutshell. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going on under the covers, just so you kind of understand. So about a year ago, Microsoft Research released something called AutoGen, which is a system for multi-agent communication. And this is where different agents can work together to solve a problem on your behalf. And they run it fairly autonomously. So we have built that into the world's first production multi-agent runtime service. We call it, surprise, Mars. That Mars engine has access to a pool of agents. Right now we have 42 agents. They break down tasks. They look at your goals. They look at all of the content that's in your SharePoint. They look at all the loop files that are in there. And then they collaborate to meet the goals of the project, which are the sort of most fundamental anchoring construct inside of the project manager agent. Now, the interesting thing about this is it does not use the same content for grounding as Copilot, your personal Copilot does. And this is very important. So if the day before you were off asking Copilot about your HR situation, benefits, who knows, this sort of personal stuff that you have, this does not have access to that same set of queries and that same set of data. It is about the team, and it is about working for the team and using the team's construct. And so we make sure that those agents are sandboxed and secure and do not have access to the data that they should not, and that data will not leak into the project. This also includes across projects. And so what happens is there's another sandbox around the projects. So if you have a top secret project over here and a not so top secret project over here, there will be no cross-contamination across those projects. And we have spent a lot of time and effort to make sure this has happened. This is our security first, compliance first attitude at Microsoft, and we've done a very hard job. That was the hardest part of this job, to be honest. And so all of that sandboxing makes sure that within a project, you get something that's tailored to the team, grounded in their data, but at the same time, it doesn't leak data in from another project or from your personal Copilot experience. Okay. So this will be rolling out in public preview. People with Copilot licenses will have access to that preview. It will start rolling out immediately after Ignite, and so check your tenants as we roll the new service out. But that's not all. We have a couple of new things coming too that are on their way. The first one is automated status reporting. I don't know about you guys. I have to write like 3 status reports a week. It's terrible drudgery. It's a lot of work. You have to go talk to everybody and figure out what you're going to do. But what we're doing now is creating the ability for you to one-click button to generate a status report off of, oh, there we go. So I can basically start generating status reports off of all the data that's inside the plan, as well as the backing store of SharePoint, so you can see what documents are updated and stuff like that. And we will then create a status report for you. Not only that, and it will be, very rich. We'll have lots of sort of visual cues for what's behind, what's on time, things like that. So it will be, I think, a very professional status report for people, so they won't, you won't have to do too much updating to this. You will probably want to put in some TLDR stuff. The other thing you can do is you can schedule these to be on a recurrence. And of course, at the same time, you might actually want it to have a certain tone of voice, like you might want it to come across as positive because the project really is on track and you want to convey that, or things are in trouble and you need help. And so you might want to convey that as well, and you can express that in the way that the status report is created. And so that's what just happened there. And I can, of course, share it to Outlook because, for whatever it's worth, we still like sending our status reports in Outlook. And so here we go. You can scroll down and sort of see a lot of the things that are going on there. You might notice that Derek's task is not coming in on time. It looks like I see that Derek's still behind on his task. So, but we might be able to help with that, Derek. So the next feature that we're doing is introducing Copilot into My Tasks. For those of you who use Planner to manage your personal work and the things that you're doing, and you keep the list of your tasks, we are going to be introducing the ability to use Copilot inside of My Tasks. And so here you can see I'm going to go in, or Derek's going to go in, and hit the Prioritize button. And just like in Outlook, that's going to give him basically a list of like, oh, here's what you should be doing today, based on all the same factors that he discussed. And so right here, you'll notice that the strategy doc is at the top. You can also click a button and add that to My Day. And so this can actually populate your My Day for you, so you have a really brief list of like all the things you need to do today. And so that'll be a really great service for people who are struggling to kind of manage all the tasks that are coming in across M365 system. And so with that, I think I'd better hand it back to Derek.
I got a lot of work to do.
Because he's got a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Howard. Yeah, it's really cool stuff. So there's a new AI employee alliance. I love this stat. 49% of people say they're worried that AI will replace their jobs, but 70% will definitely delegate things to AI if they have the opportunity. It's this paradox that sits at the center of where we're going to go with the rest of the presentation, which is really around creating content. It's really tough to stare at the blank page. And I think it's even more tough, and we'll talk about this in a second, to stare at a blank prompt. 8 hours a week are spent looking for, recreating, and duplicating information that may already exist, especially in large companies where there's so much knowledge that's already in repositories like SharePoint. And over 8 hours are spent when you have to create a new presentation from scratch. So, what are we doing to address these problems? Maestro, could I have a number 2, please? Thank you. All right, here we are, the blank page. I was just checking my tasks earlier. It looks suddenly like I have to write the strategy document that Howard had signed me earlier, so
Yeah,
I better get cracking on that.
My misspelling is even in there.
It's the strategy.
Right. Well,
document.
that's how you know it's a real demo.
Once Howard gets on a bamboo floor, he gets all out of sorts.
This floor is very nice.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So, what do we typically do when we stare at the blank page? We want to write a prompt. But a lot of people are not great at writing prompts. And also, if you give a generic prompt, often Word will do its best to use its world knowledge and some elements from your graph, perhaps, to answer that prompt. And so what did we do? We made it really easy, first and foremost, to ground the prompt in all of your information and your data from your work context. And so, for instance, I can go ahead and tag an email at the end of my prompt that might have vital information. I also can tag meetings. So if you have a meeting that's been transcribed or recorded, perhaps you talked about things in that meeting that are really pertinent to the strategy document, like what should we do with our strategy, then that will be accessible as well. So I've now given Word the prompt to create a strategy doc for the workspace strategy and design launch, and I've tagged it with that email and with that meeting, and I'm going to send it off to start creating that. Now, what you'll notice here is brand new. We announced this week a new capability called always-on grounding. What does this mean? So for those that are in your workforce that are not great at writing prompts, they just need to say the topic that they're interested in writing about, and we will look across the graph and suggest documents that are relevant to that topic. So in this case, in addition to the 2 things that I actually tagged, it's like, hey, I think there's a bunch of other stuff you might want to consider. There's this Van Arsdale, don't call it Art Van Delay, launch strategy document. There's some research. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. I didn't even know this research existed. I think I want to include that. And so I'm going to now include that additional piece of grounding, and we'll have a much better document as a result. So I'm now going to send that off to start generating the document. You'll notice that automatically a sensitivity label is applied. So this is how we make sure that any data that's coming in from AI and from Copilot in particular maintains the same governance and controls that you had from the source documents. So I'll go ahead and accept that. And then just like that, I've gotten this beautiful marketing strategy document. I'm already halfway there, actually. Now, I'm a marketing guy, and so sometimes I have to say, Copilot generates stuff that's just a little too straightforward. I think we need some fluff. We really need some fluff. So I'm going to actually ask it to turn this into a paragraph and use lots of marketing jargon and buzzwords. That's gonna make it better. Flexible workspaces are a game changer, driving productivity up a staggering 30%, significantly boosting input. You get the idea. So now it looks more like something I would write. So here we are. I'm gonna go ahead and keep that. Now, this is great. Obviously, I was able to use Copilot, grounded in all that existing knowledge that exists in the organization, and create a document. But what happens if, those humans in my organization are still writing documents? Well, Copilot can help there too. This is a doc that actually had some human hands on it, and it's very interesting. It's got this whole launch strategy that we might want to consider. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select this entire part of the document. Oh, we'll do that again. So we'll select this document, this part of the document, and then I'm going to invoke Copilot. We call this on the canvas. And I'm actually going to get coaching. Sometimes when you have a document, it's pretty good shape. You just want to tighten things up a little bit. And so Copilot can provide you really, really helpful recommendations. Now, again, I'd recommend to do this on things that are created by humans because the Copilot stuff is usually pretty tight on its own. And we're going to go ahead and have that produce a set of coaching for me. And by having that produce, I'm going to refresh because I think my Edge tab went to sleep. And we're going to do that one more time. The beautiful thing is when this ever goes online, this part will be magically cut out. And no one will ever know. Here we are. Doing live demos is like watching a tightrope walker, isn't it? You just can't look away. So here we go. We're going to get some coaching. It's going to analyze the content. Beautiful. My tab is woke. I now see that it's giving me an example here. Actually, you should clarify the digital marketing strategy. It's mentioned, but it'd be beneficial to provide some more specifics. For example, you might want to talk about which social media platform. So it's actually using its world knowledge to give me some recommendations. And there are many. Oh, you might want to actually detail the client testimonial section as well. Here's why. You could use a sentence like this. It really is just like having an editor alongside. You get to use this in many, many of the Copilot experiences. I would recommend it, especially if you're not a great writer or if your English is not your first language. Really does provide a lot of opportunity for you to tighten things up and be a great communicator. Okay, Howard, what do you think? Did I do it? Did I write the strategy, Jack?
Yeah, I think that looks like a start or G.
A real start.
Yeah, it's a start to our G.
Do you want to see if my ding is a little
Let's
louder
try
than
the
yours?
ding.
Okay. Okay, pretty good.
We love the ding, though.
We love the ding. It is really satisfying. All right, what about presentations? Take a look at this deck. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's like branded, Vandelay Industry, Van Darsdale branding. I've got all these transitions, these animations. The imagery is really, really good as well, very much on brand. Would you believe that this deck was generated by Copilot? Let me take you a little behind the scenes. This week at Ignite, we announced the ability to use third-party brand libraries, such as Templafy, inside of PowerPoint, and Copilot inherits those capabilities. So that means that the deck, thank you, I think there's some Templafy people here. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. So you get lots and lots of pre-formatted designs that your company can establish so that people don't go off the deep end in terms of their own designs. You know, we get lots of design elements as well that are really important to your brand. And then best of all, you can actually embed all of your brand imagery as well. And like I said, when you ask Copilot to create a deck, it's going to actually source from this. And the same thing goes, by the way, for if you're using the SharePoint image library. So whether you use a third party like Templafy or our own stuff from Microsoft, you can really keep your presentation on track. So let's go behind the scenes to how I actually did this. What you're seeing here is the template that I want to start with. It's really important. If you want Copilot to create a great-looking deck, start with the template that you already have. Now, how many people have already used Copilot in PowerPoint to create a deck? Show of hands. Okay. Now, second question. How many times was that deck 100% perfect the moment you generated it? I'm getting no hands.
I don't see any hands.
I'm getting no hands, Howard. Okay. All right. So we're going to use a new capability called Narrative Builder. Now, what's really interesting about this, we announced this a couple months ago, but at the time, it did not have the ability to ground on files. But if you're taking one thing away from this, grounding is our thing. We love to be able to take the knowledge that already exists and be able to put that in. So I'm going to now actually ask it to ground on this document, the strategy document that I just created. So think about how meta this is. I used Copilot to create a document, and then I made some tweaks with Copilot and some edits, and now I'm having Copilot make a deck from that same document, right? So many, many forms of abstraction and transformation in front of our eyes. Unlike maybe the version of PowerPoint Copilot you used before, where we went from prompt to perfection in one go, now it's an iterative process. You have Narrative Builder here that's actually giving you an outline of what slides it's going to produce. By the way, they're all cited as well. Since I only pulled from one doc, the citations are all exactly the same. I can move these things around if I want, so I can slide around and rearrange. And check this out. I can also add additional topics with additional grounding. So if I want to, for instance, get testimonials, I can tag those in as well. So add a topic about our early customers' testimonials and feedback. I can tag another document if I want, and now it'll add a supplemental topic based on that. So you can mix and match, you can iterate with Copilot, you can keep adding more things to ground on, and it's going to pull all that together into one place. There we go, I've got my early customers' testimonials. I'm going to actually rearrange that a little bit. You'll notice it's cited and it's coming right from the other place. And then I can go ahead and generate. Now, Copilot, of course, takes about 40 seconds or so to do this. Again, 8 hours is typically the amount of time spent on deck, so I think that's a pretty fair trade. And you'll start to see as all the slides start to populate. You'll get a sense of what that looks like in the slide sorter view, and then it's going to take you into the full view as well. Here it is starting to populate. Yes?
Yeah, one thing I'd add here is that you'll notice that a year ago we launched Copilot, and it was typing into a text box all the time. And I think what you're seeing here is all new user interface models that we've been developing, whether it be the project management assistant, the slide narrative builder, where you're interacting in a lot more visual ways with Copilot, and it feels much more natural than having just constantly type sentences. And I think you'll see us do more and more of this in the future as it just becomes a more natural part of our products.
Thank you, Howard. How did you know that I needed to vamp for like 40 seconds?
Well,
that was really good.
building an entire deck.
It's building an entire deck from scratch. Okay, so as you can see, we're adding titles to the slide. It's incorporating the design. It's inheriting all of those brand library templates, either from Templify or from the SharePoint library, and it's now going to produce this as well. The other thing that I would say that it's going to do is add speaker notes. So especially when you have Word documents that are grounding your slides, it has so much rich content to pull from. So what it's putting on the slide is just a synthesis, the high-level message. What it puts in the notes is much more of a talk track. And so that's also really, really valuable to have that there. So I'm now going to go ahead and produce my entire deck. It's going to start populating this into PowerPoint, and then I'll be able to iterate from there. One of the things that we also wanted to make sure to do is give you the ability, again, to iterate and revise your draft after it's created. Like I said, you're not going from prompt to perfection in one go. You'll have the ability to produce, and then you can use Copilot to edit, condense, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so we're going to keep this cooking in the oven here, and we'll go back and show you a couple of the things that are actually coming soon. Oh, very important. If you want to learn how to create PowerPoint templates that work great with Copilot, the team put together a bunch of best practices. This is really valuable. So I would encourage you, if you do want to revise your templates, just take a picture of this, and it'll send you to a blog that we posted on the subject. It'd be really valuable for you. Cool. Okay, so what else are we doing? Number one, we are now going to give the ability for Copilot to generate speaker notes after the fact. So if you ask Copilot in PowerPoint to actually produce speaker notes and add them to all the slides, it's going to go ahead and do that for you. So that just magically start to add speaker notes. You'll be able to get those very clearly. So that's really exciting. And then this is probably one of the things that I'm most excited about, the ability for Copilot to translate an entire presentation into other languages. And so, by the way, we will support 40 languages when we launch this. It's going to start rolling out in January. And so you can see here, you can tell Copilot to translate the presentation. In this case, it's going to translate it to Japanese, and it's going to create a copy of a presentation. So it'll end up forking that presentation for you to make it really easy for you to actually move that forward. Howard, would you like to wrap us up?
I would certainly like to do that. So I think at this point, we would like to thank you all for coming today, but also thank you for going on this journey with us. I work actually in the engineering team, and the one thing that we're going to ask from you is please keep giving us your feedback. It's super important. This is a whole new world that we're in and a whole new kind of software. I've been at Microsoft for 27 years. I've never seen the pace of innovation. I've never seen sort of the magical scenarios that we've been able to see in those 27 years. And so thank you for going on the journey. And please, please, please keep giving us the feedback because we are integrating it every day. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much.